Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time podcast. We're here with our man, Achilles Rain. We're going to do week 17 of the NFL, recap and review, and what a week it was. Lots of playoffs dashed, lots of playoff hopes rewarded, including our man, Achilles Rain. He's a happy Achilles Rain today, sort of. They're in the playoffs. How is our man Achilles Rain today?
Well, let's just say we're in the playoffs. I don't know how happy I am about it. Ultimately, it was kind of hard. There was so much that had to go wrong for them to get knocked out of the playoffs, but I just don't see how far we're going to go. We'll get into it later.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get into our
Now this made headlines.
Our headlines for the NFL. It was Black Monday. We got some coaches fired. A couple that I thought were going to be fired did not end up getting fired. But the big names, the Jacksonville Jaguars fired their head coach. Adam Gase is out for the Jets, and Anthony Lynn is out for the Los Angeles Chargers. So 3 gone, plus
we start in the NFL because Justin Herbert, everybody's favorite Oregon Duck quarterback from last.
Oh, nice. Pop-up ads breaking into our podcast.
Yeah, that was a free plug-in. Someone just got some free airtime.
Yes, I know. Some free airtime. We're dragging now as this is my 4th podcast of the day to record. So
how are you still standing?
Yes, I know. All right. So those 3 coaches went down. Somehow Doug Peterson still has a job. Somehow the Denver Broncos coach still has a job. What'd you make of these 3 firings? I think all 3 were definitely expected. Kingsbury still has a job too. So what did you make of this so far?
Yeah, I mean, definitely warranted. I know that some of them probably, I don't want to say come off as a surprise, but I mean, if you had to put it on a scale, there's definitely some that are a lot more surprising than others. Some that we probably thought would happen and didn't happen, but ultimately, I think we saw this coming. For me, the biggest shocker is probably some of the guys that are still on the team, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest shocker. I think we all knew those 3 guys, Marone, Gase, and Lynn, were all going to be out probably at the start of the year. 2 of those teams were obviously tanking the season, and Anthony Lynn had essentially been on the hot seat since he got the job. So what did you make of, let's start with the Eagles. We'll get to that game and that disgrace later. But what did you make of Doug Peterson keeping his job?
I don't know. I mean, it's a little confusing because early on in the season, I thought that you probably would give him, another shot. And I said that, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 weeks into the season. But as the season progressed and you just saw no improvement, I was a little more on the side of, okay, it's time for a change. I think that probably his saving grace was the fact that he put Hurts in, and it almost, just by perception, it made the team better because we talked about it. It really didn't. They ended up winning 1 game, I think.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So just by perception alone, I think it made the team feel like they were playing better, performing better. But I think that's really what saved his job, to be honest with you. Now he's got a whole nother headache to deal with, which is what do you do with the quarterback position? Because I think that it's definitely more of a question mark now as opposed to prior Hurts and his play.
Well, that and Doug's odd decision to pull Hurts. I know he wasn't great, but when we're dropping to Nate Sudfeld, no disrespect to Nate, he was a fine quarterback in Indiana that sort of started the trend at Indiana to being good. But I'm not sure you're going to win a lot of football games with Nate Sudfeld as your NFL quarterback. When we're benching a Hurts to go to him, I don't know. I think we've lost it as a coach, needless to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different, scenarios that come into mind right now. But I think once you made the move from Wentz to Hurts, and like you said, he wasn't playing great. Although the first half, I thought he was doing a pretty okay job. I thought he was doing enough, especially against a divisional opponent. But that second half wasn't his best. And to make the switch, I think almost would raise more question marks for me as to what the coach is thinking. If you're benching your franchise quarterback for this guy who had potential, and then he doesn't play well, so you bench him for your third stringer. What does that really say about your decision making? To me, it's a little shocking that he's still there, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Essentially, you have nowhere to go with Wentz because of the cap hit. You wasted a draft pick in the second round last year on Hurts, and now you make it even more complicated by going to your third string quarterback. Just a weird move. I think that team is definitely on the downside. We'll get to that game. The other one that surprised me, and they said last week they weren't going to fire him, was Vic Fangio at Denver. They haven't been good. Now, Denver has gone through coaches quite quickly, so maybe that has something to do with keeping him around. But I just don't see a future of winning with Vic Fangio. And I think this Denver team is a quarterback away from being a contender.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thinking, that if you're only one player away, then the coach isn't really the issue at this point. And I'm sure the consensus out there would be the same thing, that they're probably one, good quarterback away from at least contending for a playoff spot or a wild card spot or whatever it may be. So I think that it goes hand in hand. If that's all you're missing, then you can't really blame the coach for the performance, and you kind of keep him on. It keeps a little continuity going on. I think, it's really big in the NFL to have, some sort of familiarity with coaching staffs and things like that. It builds. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think that it builds a solid foundation to have a little continuity when it comes to the front office and head coaching staff.
Yeah. I guess you're with John Elway and keeping Vic around. I guess I could see your point there. The one I'm really interested in is Kingsbury here. I just don't like that decision making. You could easily make the case that team should have lost 8 games in a row to close the season. They barely hung on that Eagles game. They got that Hail Mary in that Buffalo game. Those are 2 wins that they got that are very close to being losses, and just, sort of lucky football that they got those wins. It just seems like Kingsbury doesn't have it as a coach. This isn't just NFL. This is going back to college. This man made 1 bowl game with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback in college football. To get to a bowl game, you have to win 6 games. In college football, with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, he made 1 bowl game in 3 years there with him. I'm not seeing it with him. And somehow he keeps failing up. He's on the Lane Kiffin train of never being successful, but somehow keeps getting jobs. So what do you make of Cliff there in Arizona?
The thing about that position for the head coaching position in Arizona is when you have a wide receiver like Hopkins and you have a stud young quarterback with a lot of potential in Murray, you're going to win some games just based off the talent you have, at the skill position. The defense, they've got some good guys like Budda Baker but ultimately I think that the way he started off the season is what saved his job. Now, I did say it early on. I thought that the team was a little bit overrated. I thought that they weren't quite ready yet. But, we've seen it a lot. There's coaches that are really good college coaches and have no success in the NFL, and vice versa. We've seen really good NFL coaches that just can't cut it out in college. So it's just gonna be, maybe
What
he's
about ones
just,
who are bad college coaches? What is their record in the NFL?
it's I don't know. It to me, I guess I got to give him the benefit of the doubt because of what they're putting together. I know that he had a lot of issues with, game plan and clock management throughout the season. But like I said, you have a young quarterback, and he probably vouches for his coach. He probably likes him. He seems to be a player type coach. And a lot of times, coaches like that will get defended by the star players on the team. And you know that a lot of times some of these players pull a lot of weight when it comes to decisions that are made, especially in the front office and the head coaching and assistants and all that. So maybe that plays a little bit into it. But yeah, a little shocking for me. I thought that they definitely ended the season on a down note, and he probably should have been let go of. But I don't know what's going on in the background.
I don't know. You seem like the patient GM. I seem like the fiery GM who cans everybody and keeps my job.
Listen, maybe this has to do with the fact that I've been a Rams fan basically my whole life, and even when they were in St. Louis, we went through so many head coaches, and at some point, it almost felt like, listen, I don't care how bad of a season we have. Keep somebody here. Let them give them a chance to actually build up what the vision that they see. And I think that's probably what's going on in Arizona. They're probably just letting this vision come into fruition, and maybe it pays off, maybe it doesn't. But so far, they definitely have a lot of attractive players on there. They just need to get over that hump.
Yeah, I can see it. I don't think I'm all that fiery, but the Eagles situation just looks bad all over. And I can understand your Denver situation. I don't know if I would have fired him. I just don't know if that guy's a great coach. But, the Arizona situation, I'm just like, he wasn't good in college. He had a loaded team in college and couldn't win games there. He comes to the NFL and he's struggling to win games. And he has what on paper, if you looked on that team on paper, and I gave you the Cardinals roster and the Bears roster, I think you'd be like, why is this team in the playoffs and why isn't this team in the playoffs?
Yeah, I agree with you. They probably do have the type of players to, if you play games on paper, to make the playoffs, and I think a lot of people had them making the playoffs. I don't know. Maybe it is the coaching, but they're going to give it one more try, I guess. I mean, if they have another season like they did this season, I don't foresee him being there another year.
Yeah, I think that maybe one more year. All right. You ready to recap some of these games?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right. We'll get through some of these worthless ones pretty quickly. Speaking of worthless games, New York Jets 14, New England Patriots 28. Sam Darnold 23 of 34, 266, one touchdown, two interceptions. This might be his last game in New York. Ty Johnson, 11 carries for 45 yards. Bashad Perryman, 3 catches, 84 yards. Kit Newton almost looked like a real quarterback this week. 21 for 30, 242, 3 touchdowns, 11 for 79, and 1 catch for a touchdown as well on a fun little play there. So Cam Newton finally had himself a big game. Week 1 and week 17, Cam Newton looked like the old Cam. In between, a little poor. But what do you have to break down this game other than it was played for no reason whatsoever?
Well, to say a little poor between weeks 2 and 16, I think that's being kind. He had a pretty bad season. It was kind of nice, I'm sure, for Patriots fans to see him go out on a high note. He was a 1-year signee, so
well, we'll see if they say that if they bring him back next year based on this last game.
He might have at least gotten himself another job, maybe even as a backup somewhere else. But I think his arm is pretty much donezo. I think at this point, he probably serves better as a backup or a specific type of gadget player. We just didn't see much from the season, Now, it was kind of disappointing for the way it worked out for New England because they probably had higher hopes coming in. But, we do also have to take into account they had quite a few players that opted out of the regular season, in the beginning of the year. So that played some into it. They had a whole new dynamic with the team and the offense. So I'm sure that played into it as well. Now for the Jets, what a way to blow it. They get rid of their coach. They had they had basically the best opportunity at getting that number one draft, and they blew it by winning games. And I thought at this point that they probably could win this last one since they had nothing to win or nothing to lose and gain. So they just it was a bad season for them overall.
Yeah. Well, there's already talk now of them trading back with that too. So I think that's bad draft decisions. New York Jets probably is the show for the summer. So start prepping on that now.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking notes now. So
All right. We'll get to the next game, a game at the time which was meaningful, but because Washington ended up winning, turned out to be meaningless. Cowboys 19, Giants 23, Andy Dalton 29 and 47, 243 and an interception. He had 7 carries and 48 yards. Ezekiel Elliott kept his pretty poor season. That's a really expensive average running back right now. 14 carries, 42 yards and a touchdown. Dalton Schultz 7 carries, 70 yards. Daniel Jones had a pretty nice game to close out the year, 17 to 25, 229, 2 touchdowns, interception. Gallman 11 for 65. Sterling Shepard 8 for 112, 1 touchdown. At the time, good win by the Giants, put themselves in position to get into the playoffs. Granted, as a 6-win team, Washington took care of business, so they didn't get in the playoffs. But what'd you make of this game?
I mean, I thought it was an overall entertaining game. If you're an NFC East fan, there's definitely things on the line, which is kind of what the NFL was hoping for when they changed to this format of, playing divisional opponents at the end of the year, which seriously, since they've done it, it's definitely come into play. So, good move on their part. This game had some meaning because there was playoff implications. Now, didn't turn out the way any of them had hoped, but the Giants came out and took care of business after having a few poor weeks. They came out and they handled the Cowboys. I didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought the Cowboys would win this game. They looked pretty good to start off with, but overall, their holes and their weaknesses really came into play, and I think it showed itself pretty much throughout the game. But overall, with all the setbacks they had, all the injuries, I think it was, kind of an okay season for them. They kind of came back a little bit, started playing a little bit better towards the end. I'm questioning the decision of keeping the coach, to be honest with you.
Oh, we should have brought up Mike McCarthy in there.
Yeah, this is one of those situations that I thought the coaching was a huge part of it, because even when they had their healthy star players, they weren't doing much. That defense was atrocious.
Well, they easily could have. They won that one game with Atlanta with the spinning football, and you take away that win, and they were off to like an 0-4 start.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty bad basically all season long. Like I said, they did get a little bit better at the end of the season. Maybe that's what saved McCarthy his job. But at the end of the day, this game ended up being meaningless because Washington took care of business.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to really meaninglessness. Minnesota Vikings 37, Detroit Lions 35. Cousins 405, 3 touchdowns. Madison 2195 touchdown. Jordan Jefferson kept a really good rookie year, 133. Stafford 20 of 31, 293, 3 touchdowns, interception. Adrian Peterson 7 carries, 63 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift 12 carries, 54 yards, a touchdown. Marvin Jones 8, 180, 2 touchdowns. I guess good win by the Vikings. Close the season 7-9. Probably a little disappointing overall. Lions do Lions stuff. What'd you make of this one?
Exactly that. The Lions, just basically kept the same identity they've had all season long, which is put up some meaningless stats and still find a way to lose the game, which is very unfortunate for Detroit Lions fans. I do feel bad for them because it seemed pretty promising to start the season. It seemed like they had enough horsepower to contend with the Packers, and I personally thought they had more talent than the Bears do, but the Bears are in the playoffs and they're not. So that kind of tells you all you need to know about that. Um, I'm sure that you're really excited for the playoffs to begin because, and I mean, no offense to Vikings fans or Lions fans or Jets fans or any of the other teams that didn't make the playoffs, but I'm pretty sure you're happy because you won't have to read off all these not useless stats, but pointless stats.
Yeah, they're useless unless numbers are in your contract to make bonuses. And numbers are not in my contract to make bonuses, so I don't really care about you racking up meaningless yards in worthless games. The other thing is, if you watch this game, there was a criminal, just a criminal roughing the passer call on Kirk Cousins that allowed the Vikings to win this game. I know no one will care nor pay little to no attention to it, but that ref better not be reffing playoff games because that was atrocious.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to see him in any of the games that are coming up because that was pretty bad.
All right. This one was semi-meaningful. The Browns certainly thought they won the Super Bowl, but Pittsburgh 22, Cleveland 24. Mason Rudolph, 22 of 39, 315, 2 touchdowns, interception. James Conner, 9 for 37. Chase Claypool, 5 for 101 and a touchdown. Baker Mayfield, 17 for 27, 196, 1 touchdown. Nick Chubb, 14 for 108, 1 touchdown. Higgins, 2 for 55. Landry, 5 for 51. Cleveland got the win, got into the playoffs, barely. They were a 2-point conversion away from this being tied. I understand the celebrating at the end, but it did seem a little much considering how really poorly they played, essentially versus the Pittsburgh Steelers practice squad. That disturbed me a little bit, and I don't know if they're long for the playoff world.
Yeah, it's really interesting because a few weeks ago, we both started talking up the Cleveland Browns and how well they were playing. Now, a lot of it had to do because their offense was really relying on the ground game, and they were probably one of the better rushing teams in the NFL, if not the best rushing team in the NFL. And it seems like over the last few weeks, they definitely strayed away from that identity and have gone to a let's put it all on Baker type of identity, which it's not the way you want to go if you want to win games, let alone playoff games. So I think that's definitely going to be their Achilles heel. I think they have to find a way to go back to what was making them successful, which is relying on that running game and then playing off of that, with some play action and some rollouts and things like that. But yeah, I don't understand the celebration. I mean, yes, you won, and congratulations to Cleveland Browns fans. I know that it was a pretty long drought since the last time they were in the playoffs, so it's exciting for them and for the team and the whole city and everything. I get all that, but essentially, you played like you said against the backups for the Steelers, and you barely won.
You needed a 2-point conversion stop, or else you were going to end up losing this game and probably not in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think that's, yes, you celebrate, you're glad you're in the playoffs and you move on. You shake your opponent's hand and you move on from there. You get ready, try to game plan and see if you can change, what has gone wrong with this team lately. Because even though it's a win, I don't think it's the type of win that Cleveland fans and even people that kind of been rooting for the Browns this season, it's not what they expected. They expected better and they expected what they've seen, kind of midway through the season. And that's not what we're getting right now. So if this continues, they're probably going to be an early exit team, but who knows? Maybe they're just saving it for the playoffs. So who knows?
Yeah, I could have done without Baker strutting around the field like he had done something when he had just been outplayed by Mason Rudolph, who is not exactly a solid backup quarterback. Basically, he was awful last year when he had to play. So I don't know. Just gave me a little bit of an eyebrow raise as maybe they're happy that they made the playoffs and they will be fine getting crushed and going home next week. So interesting game nonetheless. All right, we'll move on to the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills. Miami 26, Buffalo 56, Tua 35 of 58, 361, touchdown and 3 interceptions. He had 6 carries for 28 yards. Salvian Ahmed, 6 for 29. Gaskin, 7 for 20 and a touchdown. Devontae Parker came back 7 for 116. Miles Gaskin, 4 for 57. Josh Allen, 18 for 25, 224, 3 touchdowns and an interception. This was all in the first half. Stephon Diggs, 7 for 76. Basically, Buffalo played their starters for the first half, lit Miami up, benched their guys, and their backups seemed to light Miami up too. So bad way for Miami this season, but actually I think overall it's a success for Miami. I don't think anybody thought they would be a win away from making the playoffs here. So Buffalo continues to look good. And if you told me who my favorite right now for the playoffs to come out of the AFC, I think I might lean a little towards Buffalo here. But what'd you make of the game? What'd you make of the seasons by Miami here?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't fault you for taking Buffalo as your favorite in the AFC. They definitely have looked, dare I say, completely overpowering. Basically, the second half of the season. This first half, I think they kind of were trying to find their identity and kind of, getting all the new parts, working in sync, which they really did towards the second half. They've been a powerhouse, and I think that Josh Allen definitely, put himself in that elite quarterback category, or at least he's knocking on the door of it, because his play has been stellar. Now for the Dolphins, I don't think it was a bad season. I didn't expect them to play as well as they did. They were only one victory away from making the playoffs, which I think is a success. Tua didn't have the backup this particular game. They didn't have no Fitzpatrick, so it was on his shoulders, and I think he handled it pretty well. I know that he had 3 turnovers, but he's a young guy. It was a big game, big moment, and I feel like he did okay. It's his first season, and I think that the future looks bright for Miami as a whole, especially that defense if it continues to play the way it does. If they could, keep most of that team intact and maybe bring in some new talents, I think that the future is bright for them. But Buffalo, man, they look scary.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We'll move on to, this game was just crime against America. Stat padding galore. Atlanta Falcons 27, Tampa Bay Bucks 44. Matt Ryan 29 of 44, 265, 2 touchdowns. Gurley 9 of 18. Brian Hill 9 of 94. Russell Gage 9 of 91. Ridley 8 of 52. Tampa Bay, Tom Brady, 26-41, 399, 4 touchdowns, interception. He played the whole game for some reason. Ronald Jones, 12 of 78, a touchdown. Antonio Brown decided he wanted to get contract clauses hit, so he also played the whole game and stat padded his way to 11 for 138, 2 touchdowns. They got Mike Evans his 1,000 yards. He also hurt his knee, so good work there. What'd you make of this game? I disliked everything about it, and I'm never happy for somebody to get injured, but this sort of a little bit of karma here. You want a stat pad, you want to run up your numbers. Now you don't have your best receiver for your playoff game next week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they should be thankful that they have, Brown and Goodwin, because losing Evans is huge. And I don't know how serious the injury is. I don't know if you've heard any updates on it and how serious it might be.
Well, it didn't look good. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think that that game was on TV3 for me, which means it was on the smaller screen. So I wasn't catching too much of it. There were a couple other games that I was a little more interested in. But yeah, I was going to mention this game earlier when you mentioned that I'm not into the stat padding thing. I was going to say, yeah, and I'm sure we got one of those games coming up, because it was just silly. I don't understand the purpose of playing all your guys the entire game, and now you lose your star wide receiver. Like you said, I also don't, celebrate when a guy goes down, regardless of who he plays for, because they're still human beings at the end of the day. But yeah, this almost feels like karma. You go out there and you try to pad stats and try to get guys, extra money, which, don't get me wrong, make as much money as you can, but really, week 17 with nothing to play for, this is what you're going to do. To me, it's almost I don't want to say they deserved it, but they kind of did.
Yeah. This is in the summer when we read stats about last year. We'll have all sorts of flashy stats for all these guys, and it just showed me that's what they care about. They don't care about winning playoff games. They don't care about the Super Bowl because they just want their numbers. They got their numbers. Bruce Arians looks like an offensive genius. I'm sure these last 4 weeks, Tampa Bay has moved up to like number 3 in offense by literally running up score on a bunch of crappy teams because they played a bunch of crappy teams. And it is what it is. We'll see how far they make it in the playoffs when real pass rushers start jumping on top of Brady this week, actually, because they play Washington. So should be interesting. Okay, we'll move on to the Ravens and the Bengals. This was a game for about 45 seconds. Lamar Jackson, 10-18, 113, 3 touchdowns, interception. Dobbins, 13 for 162 touchdowns. Jackson, 11 for 97. Boykin, 1 for 43 and a touchdown. Brandon Allen, as great as he was last week, was not great this week. 6 of 21, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's really no stats for the Bengals, so I'm not going to read them off. Baltimore closed the season, dominating everybody for the last 4 or 5 weeks here. I don't know if there's much to go into with this game, but what do you make of Baltimore going into these playoffs?
I think Baltimore has put itself back into that dangerous category. Definitely not a team that I want to play. It seems like they've reverted back to their 2019, 2020 offense, which basically was Lamar Jackson running all over the field, opening up, passing lanes because you got to bring, the defense down to account for him running. So it helps out the wide receivers. It helps out the running back. It helps out the tight ends. It helps out the offense as a whole. And they didn't really need to do much because this game, like you said, was pretty much decided early on. And, not surprising because of the way they've been playing lately. But I think that they've definitely crossed back over into that dangerous team territory. So I don't want to see them in the playoffs. Going up against my team, I think that they're going to be one of those teams that could very easily, upset certain teams. But, a good season for them. Could have been better. Overall, they made the playoffs, which is the goal. Now for the Bengals, unfortunately, early on, they lost their star quarterback, their franchise quarterback, which was, in itself, really bad. But I think that the future at least looks somewhat bright for them. He definitely showed a lot of potential. I think in my book, he was the rookie of the year until he got hurt. He was at least on pace to break all sorts of rookie records for quarterbacks. So, maybe next season he comes back fully healthy and we'll see what happens with that. But Baltimore, man, watch out for Baltimore.
Yeah. All right. We'll go to our next game. Los Angeles Chargers 38, Kansas City Chiefs 21. The Chiefs didn't play any of their starters. Herbert 22 of 31, 302, 3 touchdowns. Justin Jackson 9 for 72. Kelly and Balaj 13 for 36 and a touchdown. Eckler 7 for 18. Mike Williams 6 for 108 and a touchdown. Chiefs Chad Henne 23 for 32, 218, 2 touchdowns. Darwin Thompson 14 for 45 and a touchdown. He also had 70 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Not really anything meaningful about this game. Justin Herbert closes a pretty good rookie season, though.
Yeah, I think that he was probably one of those surprises this year. He came in early on that first game of the season where nobody expected him to start because of the whole doctor and punctured lung situation. But yeah, really good season for him. I thought that he showed a lot of good things. And if I was a Charger fan, I'd definitely be excited for what the future holds. But overall, pretty disappointing season. I thought that the coach might have done enough to save his job, but he didn't. They're going elsewhere now. But the Chiefs and Andy Reid, even with backups, he puts together a good game plan and he seems to get his guys ready regardless of who's playing. So watch out for the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah. What job would be more appealing to you? This one with Herbert already there, or Jacksonville, where Lawrence is coming in?
I'd definitely be more excited about a Chargers job. And I know that Lawrence is, the golden arm, golden child, whatever you want to call him. But I know what I had with Herbert. He seems to be a stud for a young quarterback. You have some really good pieces at wide receiver. You have a solid, player at running back. You do have some pretty good pieces on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that you tweak some things. You tweak, your game plans, and definitely with some better clock management. I think that team is probably going to be a whole lot better than a Jacksonville team, even with their number one pick.
Yeah, I think I go a little bit Jacksonville way, mostly just based on ownership. I think the ownership in Jacksonville with the Cons probably a little more stable. You have your own building. I think just that Chargers situation is a little weird. You're renting out your stadium. The owners are a little cheap. I team wise, I get where you're coming from, where what you're getting with Herbert. You already have some defensive pieces there, but I just would trust Jacksonville ownership a little more.
Oh yeah, definitely. As far as the ownership is concerned, the Spanos aren't really known for being really open wallet friendly.
Yeah, they didn't even want to build a stadium in San Diego. They decided just to rent in LA.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, I think they would have been better off staying in San Diego. And I'm not trying to throw dirt on any LA Charger fans because I know there are some, but that you think of the Chargers and you think of San Diego. I mean, I still want to say San Diego Chargers.
I think we've probably said it about 45 times this year.
I'm sure we did.
All right, we'll move on to the Saints 33, Carolina 7. Drew Brees 22, 32, 201, 3 touchdowns, 18 for 105 for Ty Montgomery. Taysom Hill 7 for 41 and a touchdown. Emmanuel Sanders 9 for 63 and a touchdown. Teddy Bridgewater 13 for 23, 176, 2 interceptions. PJ Walker 5 of 14, 95 yards, 3 interceptions. Curtis Samuel 7 for 118. Saints put it on the Carolina here. Carolina didn't close the season great. Questions about quarterback?
I mean, I think there has to be. Don't get me wrong, and I'm a big Teddy Two Glove supporter. I think that he did a pretty good job, all things considered. Now that he did have a rookie wide receiver that was a big standout, I think a lot of that has to do with Teddy. He was able to get in the ball. And I know that we saw while Teddy was out that the backup came in. He had a pretty decent game. But I still think that he's good enough game manager that he's going to help develop these young guys into stars. And I still think that there has to be some question marks. If you can improve at the quarterback position or at any position for that matter, you always have to at least question that. And I know that personally, if the question arises, I'm definitely questioning the possibilities of upgrading certain pieces for my team.
Yeah. I don't know if they'd waste a draft pick on it, but it's a pretty deep quarterback draft. Would you draft a guy or would you look at this free agent market? There'll probably be a handful of veterans out there.
Yeah, I think it's complicated. I mean, until I know for sure, who's committing for the draft, and there's just so many question marks. I think that if you're going to draft somebody, if you're going to pick up a quarterback at all, I think you do it through the draft. I think you have to develop your guys on your own. I don't think you bring in a veteran quarterback. I think that's what Teddy's there for. I think he's good enough to, kind of manage the situation so that if you do bring a young guy in, he can help develop him as the guy's learning. Teddy can take the reins for that team. They do need some help on defense, but they also have some very attractive pieces on offense. They've got a really good running back, and like I said, they have a pretty solid wide receiver corps. So I think that maybe if you're going to bring somebody in, you do it through the draft, and you let the older veteran guy be Teddy. I think he's good enough.
All right. We'll move on, and we'll move on probably pretty quickly on this one. Las Vegas Raiders 32, Denver Broncos 31. Carr 24, 38, 371, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Josh Jacobs 15, 89, 2 touchdowns. Darren Waller 9, 117 and a touchdown. Drew Lock 25, 41, 339, 2 touchdowns. Gordon 26, 93 and a touchdown. Judy 5, 141 touchdown. I don't know. Good, worthless game. What do you have for this one?
I mean, just really quick, just so we can kind of run through these. Again, I don't want to be rude, but meaningless games. Very disappointing for the Raiders. They started off doing pretty good, and they played really tough against some really tough opponents like the Chiefs. I thought we expected a lot better from them. They definitely didn't deliver, but maybe they're gonna have to go back to the drawing board, and maybe certain pieces that they have there aren't the answer. I'm not going to say who. I'll save that for our off-season show. But yeah, pretty bad way to end the season.
Yeah. All right. We'll go to this next one. Jacksonville 14, Indianapolis 28, Glennon 26, 42, 261, 2 touchdown. Derek Bugunyawa 14 for 50. Latavius Shenault 668, 2 touchdowns. Phillip Rivers 17 for 27, 164, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I will say he's looking very, very worn down. Taylor, he is not looking worn down. 32, 53, 2 touchdowns. Nyheim Hines 6 for 50. Colts got into the playoffs, got the win they needed here. I'm not loving the way they are looking, though.
Yeah, they definitely seem to have taken a step down, especially as potent as that defense looked. Definitely has shown some holes as the season has progressed, coming to its closing. I don't know. I want to count them out, but the way that they played for most of the season makes me not, want to quickly jump on that and count them out right away. I think that they're solid enough. I think they've got some really good pieces, with Hines, and Rivers is a veteran quarterback, and that defense can play really good defense. We've seen it. Now, they haven't shown it over the last few weeks. They've definitely shown some lapses here and there, but I still think that they're a team that we can't count out. I think they could beat just about anybody on any given Sunday. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the matchups are going to look like, but they made the playoffs, and I think it's a huge boost to that franchise as a whole and the fan base, especially with the departure of Luck. I think that was a surprise to a lot of people, and to where they're at now, I think it's a huge improvement to where a lot of people thought they were going to be after the Luck departure. So I think overall it was a successful season. You're in the playoffs, and I'm not counting them out just yet. Jacksonville get the number 1 pick. They hung in there for a little bit, but now they get to rebuild, and we'll see what happens with them going forward.
Yeah. Speaking of looking wobbly going into the playoffs, Tennessee Titans 41, Houston Texans 38, Tannehill 18, 27, 216 and a touchdown. Henry 34, 252 touchdowns. Tannehill had 38 yards and a touchdown. A.J. Brown 10, 151 and a touchdown. Deshaun Watson 28, 39, 365, 3 touchdowns, an interception. David Johnson 1484 and a touchdown. Cooks 11 catches, 166, 2 touchdowns. Kiki Kuti 6 catches and 90 yards. We thought Houston was going to fight hard in this game. They did. Tennessee's defense continues to be a very bad defense. Let's just go there. Really bad defense. Derrick Henry is carrying them. How far can he carry them in the playoffs?
Yeah, first off, congratulations to Henry, King Henry. He reached a 2,000-yard mark for the season, which is, huge. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it to you. It always seems like it's a Tennessee running back doing this. But, either way, successful season for them. They managed to get into the playoffs. I had a little bit of fun messing with one of our colleagues. I don't know how well aware he was that his team was in the playoffs regardless. So I was throwing little text messages here and there as the game was going on. But overall, Houston, man, they showed up. We thought they would, and J.J. Watt seemed to really inspire that team to play hard. They did. Now for Tennessee, which is the big storyline, that defense, man, it doesn't really seem to matter who comes back. That defense still has a lot of holes, and they got to be thankful for that offense, man. That offense is super explosive. They have some big weapons at wide receiver. They obviously have, Derrick Henry, which he's a monster, almost like a force to be reckoned with by himself. But if that offense isn't going, if they face off against a team that's got a really good defense and can shut down that offense, they're in trouble, man, because that defense is
You
porous.
mean like Baltimore?
Yeah, but you know what? It's a rematch. I think it's gonna be entertaining to watch. I'm definitely looking forward to this particular matchup. So I'm sure that our colleague is going to be really excited and probably nervous as well. So
Yeah. All right. Our next game up, Seattle Seahawks 26, San Francisco 49ers 23. Russell Wilson, 20, 36, 181, 2 touchdowns. Carson, 11 and 44. Lockett, 12, 92 touchdowns. CJ Beathard, 25 for 37, 273 touchdown. Jeff Wilson Jr., 20 carries, 76 yards, a touchdown. Kendrick Bourne, 5 catches, 76 yards. So Seahawks get this last win here. Good season by the Seahawks. I think if you asked, people would be a little surprised that they're 12 and 4. It took me back. I think I thought this was a 10 or 11 win team, and I looked at their record. I was like, you know what? 12 and 4, pretty good season. So where do you think the Seahawks sit here going into the playoffs?
yeah, I mean, really good season for the Seahawks. Now, I don't know if it's because our expectations for them are so high, and then what we saw, actually on the field wasn't what we expected. That we probably all feel like this is a 10-win team. But yeah, like you said, they're 12 and 4. They had a really good season. Defensively, they seem to have stepped up this, these last 4 weeks or so. They've definitely played a lot better. It seems like they've tightened up, some of their loose ends. So that's probably a good thing going into the playoffs. Wilson looks hot as usual, especially going into the playoffs now. So I think overall this team is definitely a team to be reckoned with. They're very explosive. They have some weapons at wide receiver. I think that the biggest question mark for them is going to be whether their defense can keep up this type of play and whether their run game will show up, because I think that's probably their Achilles heel, is the inability to consistently run the ball, to control clock and control the flow of the game. We are having a rematch. They're facing up against a really tough defense in the Rams. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this third game plays out. But overall, really successful season for them. San Francisco came out. They were really gritty. They were leading the game early on. And I didn't expect anything less from San Francisco. They definitely have shown so far this season that they're a team that's going to come out and fight regardless of who they're playing against. And I think that they're going to be really excited for next season once they have all their pieces healthy and ready to go again.
Yeah, I was going to say San Francisco continued to play hard, though they are probably quite thankful. This was essentially the season from hell from them. So they're probably thankful this season is over. Look for them to bounce back next year. But Seahawks go in the playoffs. Should be an interesting team to deal with. All right, we'll get to the Green Bay Packers, who once again just cruised, and 13 and 3 to finish the year. Aaron Rodgers 19 to 24, 244 touchdowns. Aaron Jones 11 for 42, a touchdown. Marquez Valdez-Scantling 2 for 87 and a touchdown. Devontae Adams 6 for 46, a touchdown. Trubisky 33 for 42, 252 interception. Montgomery 22, 69 and a touchdown. Devin Mooney 11 for 93. David Montgomery 9 for 63. So the Bears lose, but they get in the playoffs with the Cardinals losing. I guess I put the Bears maybe closing the season better than the Cardinals, so they probably deserve to be in there anyway. Green Bay, I read a fun stat. They had more touchdown passes than punts this season. So I think this team might be a little better than I think any of us think. I think this offense is a really dangerous weapon here.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to be disrespectful here, but I think that their weakness all season long has been defense. But yet that offense is so potent that you don't even think about it, because even in games where I thought that they would struggle because of their lack of defense. They seem to come out and just completely shut out the opponent. That that Adams to Rogers to Adams connection is probably one of the best in the league. And I don't think that they're really getting as much attention as they probably should be getting. I think they're probably one of the more dangerous teams to face off against anybody. And to me, they're probably, one of the favorites in the NFC to go all the way. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know who they're going to play yet, obviously, but once it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them, facing off for the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to the Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Rams, a barn burner of a game, 18-7. I don't know if we knew the Chris Stevler, John Walford matchup was what we had in store for the game of the week on the NFL side of things, but that's surely what we got. I wish I could have seen those promos. Stevler, Walford, the showdown in Arizona.
Well, you did mention a few times, their respective colleges and the matchup of the week, and I was confused as to who you were even talking about because I was expecting a Wolford and Murray matchup, but it was what it was. I don't know what you thought about the game.
It sort of broke down how I thought this Rams defense stepped up and made the plays they needed to. I wouldn't call Walford great. They got him out of the pocket. He got some runs for some key first downs. I don't think anyone's going to be gloating about his precise throwing, but he did enough. He only had the one really bad pick to start the game, and then, they weren't calling a lot of slants over the middle after that. I don't think they had him reading where linebackers were going to be after that. So I thought the Rams defense did what it was supposed to, stepped up, got him in the playoffs. I don't know what I think they can do in the playoffs. Certainly, if Goff is not back. I know there are a bunch of weirdos on ESPN and other sports networks trying to pretend like John Walford should be the full-time quarterback, but say what you want about Goff. If John Walford's your full-time quarterback, you aren't winning playoff games. Goff, we've seen him win playoff games. So I think if Goff is able to get back and is actually healthy, I say actually healthy, not just he's able to get on the field. I give the Rams a little bit just based on the defense. But if it's Walford next week, I don't see them going into Seattle and winning a football game.
I agree with you. I think that if it's Walford going next week, I think that Pete Carroll's going to game plan to have that defense swallow this guy up. Now, I will say this. He did impress me a little bit. I think he made some really good throws. There was some situations where, he went through all his reads and, if he had to check it down or get rid of the ball or even, just kind of tuck it and run, I think that he did a pretty good job, all things considered. Now, I don't understand the comparison when people said, well, Brett Favre also threw an interception in his first pass. Listen, I'm a Rams fan, okay? And I'm telling you right now, he's no Brett Favre. And as much as I've disliked Goff's play this season and as much as I'm over, his decision-making and his lack of leadership, he is still a lot better than Wolford is, and he gives us the best shot at winning. So hopefully he's healthy. And it's no disrespect to Wolford. He did a solid job and he came out and he took care of business. He did what he was supposed to do. But if he plays, there's no way he makes it to the next round healthy. The guy, even when he's running out there, he's putting his helmet down. He took about 4 or 5 shots to the head, which was surprising to me that he was even in the game that long, to be honest with you. I think this game was won by that defense. That defense made some big plays.
Well, that was the other thing. The defense scored 9 of its 18 points. I think people are sort of forgetting that this was essentially a 9-7 game.
Murray was out.
Yeah, and Murray was out. So it wasn't like he lit up the scoreboard or anything. He did enough and didn't make any killing mistakes. His only bad mistake was early on in the game. They were able to overcome it. But
I'll tell you
I think he proved he could be a backup quarterback in this league.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say, is that to me, what he proved is that he has the capability of being a good backup quarterback for the Rams. Hopefully they get to keep him because he definitely adds a different element to that team. But I still think that as of right now, if you're not aiming for Goff to play, then you're probably in trouble going forward. And this is coming from a Rams fan.
Yeah. I doubt Henderson makes it back. We'll see about Cup. Akers did not look very healthy. I think they'll definitely have a tough time in Seattle if they don't get some health and some positive, I shouldn't say positive COVID test, non-positive COVID test.
Now, there is a possibility that we do get Big Andrew back next week. So
Yes, I think he will be back.
So I think that helps the running game a little bit. I think it kind of solidifies that offensive line a little bit more, adds a little bit more protection to the quarterback. So if Goff does return next week, which honestly, I think he will, I have a pretty good feeling about it. I think that it being a playoff game, I think they're going to try and, push him back. How advisable that is, I can't give you an answer to that. But I think that, again, now with quarterback really helps out that offensive line and adds a little more protection so that you feel a little bit more comfortable putting Goff out there.
Yeah. All right. This last game was pretty much a fitting in to the NFC East. I think it pretty much summed up what the whole division was, which was pretty much garbage. Washington came away with the win. Alex Smith somehow fought his way and got this team 20 points, 22 for 32, 162, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Gibson, 19 for 75. McLaurin, 7 for 40 and a touchdown. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts, 7 of 20, 72 and a pick. Nate Sudfeld, 5 of 12, 32 and a pick. Boston Scott, 15 for 65. Hurts, 8 for 34 and 2 touchdowns. Asega Whiteside, 2 for 40. Fitting in for the Eagles. They pretty much played like garbage all year long. Looked like garbage in this game. Washington didn't exactly look great, but the defense made some plays. The offense found some points, and they go to the playoffs with a home playoff game.
Yeah, to me, this game was a tale of two halves. I think that first half was, dare I say, entertaining. Philadelphia looked okay. Washington looked okay. Alex Smith, I think, to me, I think he's probably comeback player of the year, in my opinion, at least. He's definitely shown a lot of grit and a lot of heart to get back out there, especially after those injuries he had and even those setbacks he had this season. To come out and play the way he did, I thought was probably the biggest story for me, at least. But Washington was definitely the better team in that division throughout the season. They started off the season pretty good with that defense, and they kind of fell off a little bit, but they finished strong, at least for the NFC East, and now they're going to the playoffs. So, congratulations to them for making it. But ultimately, I think that they're probably one of those teams that won't make it very far, but it's still an accomplishment in itself to make it back to the playoffs. So, there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our
You had one hell of a
best
game.
of the week. All right, so what do you got on the offensive side of things for best of the week?
Oh man, I was really torn when I was going up and down these days because it's week 17.
Yeah, I know.
you
have
know,
to sort through all the fake numbers.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, I figured that I'd just go off the top of my head and go with guys that really kind of just, pop up as I'm trying to think right now. So I'm going with Derrick Henry, breaking 2,000 yards for the season. I think it's a huge accomplishment. He helped his team, get that victory, which they really need. Well, they didn't really need, but it definitely looks good on paper. So Derrick Henry for me is my offensive player of the week for the 2,000 yards.
Yeah, I went the same. More of probably a culmination of offensive player of the year. 2,000 yards, very impressive. Had a big day. Granted, it was versus a Houston defense who I think they could have probably put some shoulder pads on you, and you probably could have found a way to run for 100 yards in that game. But nonetheless, Derrick Henry, my offensive player of the week. Where are you going on the defensive side of the things?
For defense, I'm going with my team, the LA Rams. I think that they won that game. They came out and they knew they were going to have to play really well. I don't want to say that they purposely hurt Murray, but that definitely helped their cause. So they came out, they were really aggressive. They probably really happy that Murray went out because they had a gimme interception that they took and returned it pretty much all the way for a touchdown. So I think that they deserve a little bit of praise in a game where it wasn't necessarily completely on them, but winning definitely locked their playoff spot. So the defense took care of business, and the Rams are my defensive team of the week.
Yeah, I'm going with the Washington football team defensive line. Played another really great game, and really they are the star of this Washington football team's success. They're just a devastating unit. So Washington football team for me. Where are you going, coach, this week?
For my coach of the week, I am going with Andy Reid. I know that we've probably mentioned him once or twice this season, if that, but I think that he deserves a little more credit. He put together a really good season. Didn't win by a lot of blowouts, but they did enough to win games. They definitely seemed like they were kind of, half awake, half asleep all season long. But now the playoffs are here. I'm pretty sure he's going to get his team ready. Just the same way that he got all his backups ready to face off against a divisional opponent and still played a really good game. Yeah,
I'm going back to Washington, and I'm going Ron Rivera to get this team into the playoffs with all it's been through, with all he's been through this year. It's not been pretty. That team isn't pretty to watch necessarily, but you can only play what's on your schedule, and you can only win your division for what it is. So 7 wins gets them into the playoffs, gets them a home game. I thought Ron did a great job of sort of manipulating this season to get this team into the playoffs. So Ron Rivera is my best coach of the week. All right, let's hit up.
Terrible. Just terrible.
Our worst of the week. Where are you going on the offensive side of things?
Yeah, this is tough because as I'm trying to sit here and think about who had a bad week, I probably have to go with Sam Darnold and the Jets. I know that, they gain nothing from losing. They lose nothing from losing. But ultimately, you're going up against a divisional opponent, a divisional rival, dare I say, that hasn't looked good all season long, and you made him look like his career is being reborn again. Offensively, Darnold didn't do a lot to win that game, and I for second time this season, I took the Jets, and he cost me. So Sam Darnold is my worst of the week for offense.
Well, it's probably wrong to pick on him. He's barely a backup quarterback in this league, and he had a very bad matchup versus a team that was highly motivated to win the game. But Brandon Allen was just dreadful. 6 for 20 and 2 picks. You just was really bad. So sadly, Brandon Allen, my worst of the offensive side of things. Where are you going defensively this week?
For worst defensively of the week, I'm going with I got to go off the top of my head. I'm going to have to go with Cincinnati. I know that they face off against a juggernaut in the Ravens, but, to not even somewhat slow them down. I mean, that game was over early and you could have made some noise, made something happen at the end. They just didn't show up at all. And I know, like I said, they're going up against a really good team with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, but it's still no excuse. You got to at least try and show up. So I could have gone with Tennessee for giving up all those points to Houston. I could have gone with, the 49ers for letting the Seahawks back into that game. There's so many teams I could have gone with, but Cincinnati really stands out to me. So I'm going with Cincinnati.
Yeah. I'm going the Dolphins. Really good season, but the Bills really had nothing to play for. And mostly we're just trying to protect themselves. If you watch Stephon Diggs, he's literally sliding after he takes 2 steps after he catches the ball. So they got torched today. They needed that defense to step up, and it couldn't step up. So the Dolphins D let them down a little bit today versus Buffalo. But so the Dolphins defense is where I'm going on the defensive side of things. Where are you going coach-wise on worst of your week?
Now, coach-wise, I'm going to go with the trio. And I'm going to go with the trio that got fired simply because they got fired. There's a reason why you guys don't have a job anymore. And it's very unfortunate that you have to go out and look for another job, but I'm sure someone will pick you up and pay you millions of dollars to keep doing what you always do. So the 3 coaches that got fired, you're my worst of the week.
Well, my worst of the week, I'm going to continue to pick on Tampa Bay and Bruce Arians. Basically disgusting. Racking up all your fancy yards. Pretty much these last 4 games, I guarantee you 2/3 of all their touchdowns and yardage numbers are these last 4 games of the season. So, people might buy it when they look at the stats in the summer. My memory will not, because I watched these games, and all your numbers are pretty much fake and ballooned because you decided to run up scores. Great work. That's what college teams do. So dynamite to you, and enjoy your early exit from the playoffs and your cool numbers at this summer year when you can negotiate contracts. So Bruce Arians, my worst coach of the week.
Ouch, that burns, man. You really handed it to him. I take it you're not a big Tampa Bay fan for the playoffs.
No, I'm not a big Tampa Bay fan. I don't know if I could pull the trigger on Washington beating them. They do have the defensive line that can bother old Tom. The weather might be bad, so that could be worth something. But I don't know if that offense will be able to score on that Tampa Bay defense, which is really the reason they win games, just in case anybody hasn't watched them play.
Yeah, you definitely took a coach that won a game as the worst coach of the week. So
Yes,
that's
I know.
awesome.
All right. That's our show for the week. Be sure to follow us on greenlightnetwork.org. You can get all our podcasts. We're going to try to get Achilles Reign in here again on, I believe, Thursday to do our pick show. It might be Friday. We haven't totally decided yet. I might also get him in here to do a know-it-all podcast to go over the NBA last couple weeks. So be sure to look out for that. Where can we find you, Achilles?
You can find me on Twitter at TD Achilles. You can find me on YouTube at That Dude Achilles. You can also follow me on Facebook as Achilles Reign. Also, don't forget to follow us on our YouTube channel, which is
Greenlight Network.
That's right.
All right. That's our show. You can find me, GLN Champ 5, on Twitter and Instagram. That's our show, and we're out.